All right, all right. So what I want to do just initially real fast is just cruise back over into Canvas because I want to talk about the expectations for our homework and lab this week, okay? So there's two assignments. One's called single jump. We're going to start that now, and you're probably going to be able to get that done today, right now, okay, in class. Maybe, depending on how fast you draw. And then we also have the bouncing ball. The bouncing ball is a classic bouncing ball. You actually saw some really great illustrations of this in our lecture earlier today. And if we were to cruise over into our assignment sheet, you can see the goal here, okay? The good old classic bouncing ball. The big things that I want you to look at is that I want your ball to bounce at least 3 times. It's up to you to figure out how it bounces. Be creative. Your animation has to be at least 40 frames, at least. Okay, if you want to make it more, I think that's a great idea, okay? In addition, I'm also looking for you to apply the idea of squash and stretch into your animation, okay? If you look very carefully up at the illustration at the top of the page, you get a good sense of what our arcs are going to look like, okay? But there isn't really any squash and stretch in there. This is your job. Squash and stretch allows us to create a small little miniature character, if you will, out of something that's inanimate, like a ball. By squashing and stretching it, we remind our audience that this is an elastic object, that there's some sort of internal spring, if you will, that's physically deforming the envelope of our ball and forcing it to bounce forward and interact with the environment. If you look downstairs in the body of the assignment, I've given you guys, I think, a real solid example of what the expectation is. And if you look carefully as the artist animates the ball jumping across the screen, you can see a good stretch and a good squash as it impacts the ground. It stretches to anticipate the landing, and it squishes. And it goes back out into its original form again. Okay? That's the goal this week. 3 bounces. I'll leave it to you and your creativity to figure out what that looks like. Okay? All right. That's your homework this week. And of course, naturally, when you're done, return to Canvas and upload your Animate project file and the rendered movie from Animate to this assignment sheet. Now, let's just return for a second to the Week 3 module, and we're going to start working on our lab, which is really an opportunity for us to explore squash and stretch a little bit more directly. Actually, there's 3 principles of animation here that we're going to be taking a look at right now. First, of course, is squash and stretch, and your mission here, and I haven't given you an illustration because I want you to be creative in this process, okay? Your mission here in your lab is to draw or is to create an animation of a ball doing a single jump. Single jump. How are we going to squash the ball down, make it go up, and then come back down? That's your question, okay? That's the job that's in front of you. Squash and stretch will allow us to produce the illusion that there's something inside that's making this ball choose to jump, okay? Everything in our world is a character. The days of inanimate objects like a silly pendulum swinging are gone. Everything's a character now. What's on the inside of your character that's choosing to deform its shape and make your ball jump? Okay, we'll look at that a little bit more directly. Also, arcs. Everything moves along a path, a curved path. So is your ball going to jump straight up? No. Okay, everything has a movement arc to it. What could that be? It's a good challenge, right? We have to invent a solution for this, right? Instead of having, for me, and maybe instead of having the ball just single jump straight up, maybe it's jumping from over here and going, woo, like that. That could be fun, right? A movement arc. It produces depth inside the scene. The last thing we want are flat, boring animations, and it's very easy to create flat, boring animations. Movement arcs help us get away from that, okay? Also allows us to have some fun, too, okay? In addition, the illusion of gravity, which we started to apply last week. So I really want you to continue to apply that easing in the principle of timing. Slow movements contrasted by fast movements create dynamic movements, okay? So for your little jump, where would the ball be moving the fastest, perhaps? Coming up and coming down, right? Absolutely. It'll be moving the slowest at the top of its movement arc, okay? Because that's where gravity is going to start to pull the ball back down to earth and slow its movement. Let's take a look at how we can begin to prototype this over in Animate. And then I'll let you guys get to work and start drawing this in front of you, okay? So I've just opened up a blank Animate file here. And, oh, one other thing, I forgot to mention this for the assignment. I want this to be in color, too, okay? So no just single black outlines, full complete drawings. Make a simple scene, a simple stage, and it really could just be, you know, a green bar with a blue bar in the background to represent the sky and the grass. But we're always, always, always going to be placing our characters in a scene going forward. So you're going to have to draw that too, all right? It'll also help you understand the staging of this too. So let's just do this real fast. I'm going to create the world's simplest background. And I always separate things out in layers, and let's just do this. I want to make my fill color just a very bright, vibrant green. Okay, excuse me for one moment. Here we go. Let's see, maybe right around, now I have a stroke going here. Let's do no stroke. Oops. Select it. Come on now. There we go, I win. There we go. And in addition, let's also do, let's just have this be a nice shade of light blue. Boom, simple sky, done. All right, there it is. Now at least we have a horizon line inside of our frame, right? Something that we can use to help determine the movement of our ball jumping up and down. Okay, literally as simple as that to get things going. Okay, so let's create a new layer. And I think my application frame is being a little chopped off here. There we go. I'm going to create a new layer. Call this ball. And let's begin to explore perhaps how we could draw all this. Okay? And this is where your artistry is going to come in. There's a couple things in here that we need to consider. Okay? First and foremost, let's do some basic plotting out, some basic pose-to-pose planning of where all these animation frames are going to look like. So let's draw the keyframes first. It's a good idea, right? It honors and follows a very important practice and principle that we discussed earlier in the day. So let's draw the ball. Okay. And I'm going to choose a different fill color. How about I'll make mine a really outrageous red. I don't want a stroke, so I'll turn that off. I'll hold down the Shift key and draw my sphere. Okay, that's my character, and I want to draw him and continue to squish and deform this person's shape and volume over the course of many frames. Okay, so let's start planning and plotting all this stuff out. Now I'm going to draw. Let's see. Yeah, how are we going to do this? Let's figure this out. I want to have, I'm being an animator. There we go. Awesome. There we go. I want to have my character jump, maybe not from the left side to the right side, but I wanted to have it be a pretty intense little arc here. So here's a good tip. Plan some stuff out. You can have assets and layers inside of your scene whose exclusive purpose are guides. That's what I'm going to do. I work a whole lot better when I have an idea of where things are going to go. So I'm going to add an additional layer. This is just going to be a guide layer, and I'm going to use my brush tool here. I'll make, let's see, I'll make it just a very light blue. Yep. Here I got crazy, oops, I clicked on the wrong button, sorry. Clicked the wrong button. Let's go back to my brush library and let's just do, there we go. Yeah, just something to kind of help me understand the movement of all this. How do I want this to look? Let's plan it out a little bit. Something like that. That'd be pretty fun. Now, well, I understand that it's probably very difficult to see that inside on the projector here. So I can go and select that line. Let's just increase the width of it a little bit. That's pretty good. Oops. Let's see. Let's go and just return this just to a solid mode. Yeah, there we go. So the whole purpose behind this, that's very difficult to see. Let's make it white. The whole purpose behind this little stroke here is just to give me an idea. I'm plotting and planning where all this is going to go. This is not a layer that's going to be in my final drawing at all. It's just a layout frame. Okay? There we go. Ah. All right, so that's going to be my movement arc. My ball is going to start over here. It's going to jump up to the top of its arc and then go down. Cool, right? Now we have a plan. Let's start putting that plan into action a little bit. I'm going to go back to my ball layer here, and I need to start adding some additional keyframes to this shape in here. What would a keyframe be? Being at the top, yeah, because we absolutely need to communicate to our audience that this ball is going to go to the top of the arc and then back down. So right there we have 3 keyframes that we've already zeroed in on. We need a start, top of the arc pose, and then another drawing to represent where we want it to finish. How do we do that? Adding keyframes, correct answer. How do we add a keyframe? Yeah, so if you go down here to our timeline, so here's the ball. If I have that keyframe selected, which key on the keyboard creates a keyframe? F6. F6, you got it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit F6, and you can see just instantly on that one layer, oh, actually on all layers, and it didn't create, it created an empty keyframe, because I may have hit the wrong button. There we go. I hit F5 instead of F6. My apologies, or excuse me, I hit F7, which creates an empty blank frame. F6 creates a new keyframe, and I know it's a keyframe because we have a light bar with a black circle on the inside. If you get a dark bar with a dark circle on the inside, you haven't created a keyframe, okay? You've created an empty frame. So on this keyframe, let's move it, I don't know, over here, okay? Then once again, I'll hit F6, and then I'll move my ball back over here. Let's turn on some onion skinning like we did last week to give us a much better understanding of how all these frames are working together to produce the animation. And we can kind of see pretty quickly what we're working with here. I really don't like how I've drawn that middle frame. I'm going to go in and tweak it a little bit. That's okay, because now we're actually physically making drawings that are going to turn into animations. If I scrub my playhead or hit play, we can kind of get a nice quick preview of what my animation is. All right, so those are 3 great storytelling poses. Those are 3 excellent keyframes, but now we need to go in and start creating the illusion of squash and stretch, right? How are we going to do this? Here's a cool little trick. If you've chosen to draw your sphere with an object, with our sphere tool, okay, as an object, check it out. This is an awesome little trick, one that I personally really enjoy. I'm going to add another keyframe in here. So F6, excuse me. Now let me zoom in real fast. So there's that one on frame 2. So if I had that keyframe selected and hit F6, does it create a new keyframe? Not really, because the keyframe, the next frame already is a keyframe, so there's nothing for us to create, right? What we need to create now in order to bump frames 2 and 3 forward, so turn to frame 1, is F5. Okay? F5 basically creates a duplicate of that frame, okay? It holds that first drawing for an additional frame, and it bumps everything else down. Okay, so now I can hit F6 to create a keyframe and start making a change on that frame. Okay, because I don't want to hold the first drawing. I want to create a new drawing that's based off of the illustration that I created from the first. So this is pretty cool. If you look very carefully here, and I'll zoom in so you guys can see it, all around the boundaries of my little circle there is a path. At the core of the Animate illustration engine is a vector animation engine, okay? So everything is path-based, which is what we like. And it ensures that everything is nice and crisp and clean, which is cool. One of the great features of working in a vector environment is that we can go in and adjust those paths at any time, okay? So let's just do it real fast. If I select that drawing, if I hit the A key, which is my, oops, I'm on my background layer. That's not the layer. I'm going to lock my background layer just so it's not selectable. If I hit the A key, which is my sub-selection tool, Now I can, oops, come on, there it is. Now, the white arrow in my toolbar, the sub-selection tool, will allow me to grab single control vertices around that shape and adjust the path. A great way to make some really cool squash and stretch, because now I can start changing the envelope. The little handles down here will allow me to make some pretty cool shapes. Oops, that's an old Photoshop habit. Come on now. There we go. That's fun. Kind of flattening it out a little bit. You can even grab multiples by holding down the Shift key and selecting on the control verts. Begin to squash it down like that, which is kind of fun. Okay. So now I have, on frame 1, I have that drawing. Then it squashes down. Then, whoops, my background. Now, my background here didn't extend. If I wanted to extend this drawing to go to this frame, what would I have to do? Does anyone remember? You could move it, but what's the keyboard shortcut? F5, right? F5 is going to add a new frame from an existing drawing, okay? Because that's the way I think of it. I think of these little bars here as a drawing, okay? That is a drawing that we're holding for 1, 2, 3 frames, okay? If I wanted to hold it for an additional frame, that's where the F5 key comes on, okay? It's going to add a frame from an existing drawing. F5, see how that conclusion indicator moved down to the right 1 frame? Here, let's just do it a couple times. Now, if you wanted to, I can hit F5 a couple more times here. Boop, 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 boop. See, it's just adding additional frames to that one drawing. Or if you know that you're going to have like 40 of these things, put your cursor over the conclusion indicator, that little rectangle, and if you look very carefully, you can just barely see it underneath my mouse cursor. See the little dotted little marquee rectangle that shows up? That means you can move that keyframe further down to the right, okay? So if I wanted, as an alternative to hitting the F5 key a whole bunch, I could just take that thing and drag it all the way down to frame 40, and you can see that it's holding that one drawing now for 40 frames. All right, which gives me a great little landscape in here for me to do my work, because now I can continue going through and creating a whole series of subsequent keyframes for my ball to get the illusion that I'm after. Okay? All right. So if you look at my animation this far, here's the first drawing, and let me see if I can reposition things so you can see it a little bit more easily. All right, there's the ball in the first frame. Here's the ball in the next frame. Kind of squishes down a little bit, and I just did this real quickly. Here's the ball in the third frame, which is way up high. That's not exactly, that's a good keyframe, but I may want to have a couple more frames down here where the ball squashes, because that's a really intense change in movement, is it not? If you scrub back and forth between that drawing and that drawing, look at my change here. Doop, 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 doop. I'm going to turn off my onion skinning so we can see it. I'll turn off my guide layer. I may want to have an in-between in here to begin to smooth out that animation a little bit, because a big change in form that happens between a frame is going to feel like a click, okay? You'll find as you get some more experience in animation that you'll create your own kind of vocab, if you will, your own vocabulary on how things feel. And usually those feelings are a good indication of when a change or an addition needs to make space. A click for me is when it feels staccato, when it feels like it just, you only see it for a frame or two. It feels too fast. It feels like it just clicked in and clicked out. Okay. Whenever my kind of my spidey sense says click, it's usually a good indication that I need a couple more in-betweens in there. Okay. So let's do it real fast. And this is where the fun of animation really comes in, figuring out the timing and the creation of all this. Yeah, let's do this. I'm going to go just to frame 1, create a new frame. Excuse me, hit the wrong button there. I'm going to hit F5 to create a new frame from that drawing. right? And then I'll go to that drawing, hit F6 to convert it from a blank frame of the previous drawing to a new keyframe, and now I can have some fun. Go in. Let's see. Let's turn our onion skinning on again. Yeah, now I can see where I need to squash too. So maybe on this one, the ball is lower. The ball is lower, maybe like right in here. And these things start to move down a little bit. Yeah. Now when we start to look at our animation frames, see how it looks like it's kind of beginning to squish? Then it's, okay, I'm squashing it first. I think I need one more in between in there to really give me the illusion that I'm after. Yeah, if that's my target, if that's my keyframe, let's go back to the second drawing, hit F5 to add a new frame, a new duplicate frame of the second drawing, and then I'm going to convert that frame with the F6 key. And I'll make some changes. So maybe now, let's see, the top of my form doesn't change all that much. But it does need to come down a little bit more. And this, I'm going to bring almost all the way down to the ground now. Start changing its shape. And FYI, you can break the tangent handles by holding down the Option key. I try my best to keep them somewhat flattened out, just to create a nice smooth transition. Yeah, let's turn off our onion skinning. Onion skinning is great, but at times it just gets in the way. Let's play it in real time. It happens quickly. Yeah, squash, natural squashes. Okay. Now, when we compress the spring, what should we do? What's the next natural thing? We compress the spring, what's next? Boom, we expand the spring. Here's a great little trick, though. Give our character a moment of internal dialogue. Let our character breathe for a second, if you will. Think about it. When you're jumping, everybody has ever done this? You've gone to like a diving board. You stand on the edge of the diving board. You get to the edge. You bend your knees. Okay, I'm going to jump. You bend your knees, and then what do? You say to yourself, am I sure I want to do this? Right? And you get ready, and then you go, okay, I'm sure. And then you jump. Give your character a moment of breath, okay? Where they can just breathe for a second. A pause. Like a 3 or 4 frame pause makes him think about it and then go. Like this is an intentional movement. He's squashing, think, and then jumping. Because remember, this is a character. This is the living, breathing little thing. It's no longer just a ball. So we want to make sure our audience understands that there's an opportunity in here for an internal dialogue. Okay? Make sense? So here's what I might do for a couple frames. And I still have a tremendous amount of work, and it's wigging out because I'm all zoomed in. I have a tremendous amount of work in here. This is still not enough keyframes to create a nice, smooth, fluid movement. But now I'm in a place where I can start really prototyping it. You know, for example, on the 4th drawing here, I'm going to hit F5. Let's see. I'll put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to hold that drawing for 6 seconds. There we go. So now he's going to squash, and then he's going to think about it. Maybe he doesn't completely stay static during that movement. Maybe on this next one, yes, here's what we can do. We can convert that to a keyframe, and then maybe he starts to squash a little bit in here. What would happen here? Just to give it a little bit of movement, because we always want to have a little bit of movement. Go forward. Sometimes these micro squashes go a long, long way. see what that looks like. So there's a lot of big movement. It's subtle, but it works. And then, of course, over here, we're going to need some animation frames that really start to motivate the next jump. Okay? And that's your mission over there, our lab assignment today, is just to make this thing jump once. Okay? Now, at the top of it, yeah, question. I'm sorry, Grant, I didn't mean to skip over you. Now, at the top, and I'm just going to do some very quick drawing here. This is not going to be, actual animation frames. Let's turn our guide layer back on just for a brief moment. All right. So let's do this. I'm going to hit the V key so I can select my curve. And this is the cool thing about this vector stroke engine inside of Animate, is that I could very easily, after I selected the curve, return to my properties and decrease and change any of its properties. That's going to help. All right, so that's my target. Okay, that's what I'm after. However, let's go in and just do some drawing for a second. Let's just plot some of this out. And I'm just going to use how about a light yellow? Is that going to work? Let's change my color back. I don't know why I'm being so picky, but I am. I'm being picky because I am picky. Okay, so let's do some plotting and planning out right now, just to kind of get us all roughly on the same page. All right? I hope this works. So if this is my movement arc, I know I'm going to need to have, yeah, that's not awesome at all. Excuse me for a moment. I'm going to zoom in because I just want to see my movement arc. There we go. That will have to do. All right. So if this is the top, okay, if I have an animation frame down here and an animation frame here and one, oops, and then another one, there we go, another one up here. Where am I going to go in and add additional, or how is the spacing of my ball going to be at the top of the arc? Pretty close, yeah, because at the top of our movement arc, excuse me, I'm just having a day right now with technology. It's going all over the place. At the top of our arc, the spacing needs to be pretty tight. So that's a drawing, that's a drawing. Why? What does this tight spacing at the top of our arc produce? Yeah, the illusion of slowing down, right? So we'll have a drawing here. So where is the ball going to be moving the fastest? Yeah, kind of like right in here, right? This is where it's going to be moving pretty fast on either side of our arc. So it's going to be moving slow down here. So you got really slow squash and stretch, okay? Really slow. This is horrible, by the way. And then in this part of our movement arc, this is where it's going to be moving the fastest, okay? Think of it like this. We compress the spring down here, and then it takes off like a rocket. And then when that rocket gets to the top of its movement arc, it's going to start to slow down. So we have a whole series of tightly spaced animation frames to create that illusion, okay? And then, of course, we return back to good old Mother Earth, okay? And then we'll have some more tightly spaced animation frames. Cool, huh? I would really recommend you doing something very, very similar to this, just to wrap your brain around the problem. I think far too often what I see people in general, not just you animators, but just people in general, they feel committed whenever they make a stroke with their pen, right? They think, oh, this is permanent. This is not permanent, right? We can subtract, we can erase, okay? We want to explore, though, and really start to plot out how all this is going to look, okay? Have a layer inside of your animation whose sole function is to plot and plan. This is a process layer. Naturally, I'm either going to delete it or I'm going to turn its visibility off so I can start, the honest work of getting everything dialed in, okay? It's really helpful. Plan things out before you go. Okay? Make sense? Everyone on the same page as to what our goal is? Okay, we've got about 45 minutes left in class today. Let's use this time to start making our ball do that single jump. Remember the expectations: squash and stretch, arcs, and timing. Okay? I want to see a character being born from squash and stretch. I want to see that movement arc so your ball isn't going to just jump straight up and down. And I want to see you starting to include the illusion of gravity by changing the spacing of our animation frames in the correct locations. Questions? Diego. Okay, let's go check it out. Let's get to work. What's up?
All right, I have an idea to make it more, animated. I can get shot out of the cannon, right?
Awesome.
But I cannot fill the cannon color without filling the body.
Yes. Okay, let's see how you've chosen to do this. Okay. Now, which fill tool were you using?
For those, it was just the square one,
Or the rectangle one. So let's try this. Now, we have a little bit of a challenge in that you've drawn your cannon on the same layer as your background. But we can try to attempt to fill it. Yeah. But let's put it on another layer. Right. That way we can animate it independently from the background. Okay. So here are some paint bucket tools over here that I would encourage you to explore.
Yeah, I tried that one.
Try that and it filled everything. Yeah, and it may be just because that entire field is in its own layer. Now, also, when you drew your cannon, which of these two tools did you use? That one. Okay, great. Yeah. What if you did the other paint bucket tool?
I did try that.
You try that one, okay.
It did nothing.
It did nothing. Good. Let's see. Yeah, because you're drawing as a fill. Oh, let's try this. Let's try going to your direct selection tool. Since you painted it in object mode, can you select it? Oop, that's the background. Can you click? Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a step in the right direction. Oh, check this out. Look, you actually did a black stroke, and then it's already filled in as green. What if you just click on green? No. Yeah, it's seeing this entire area as one object. Yeah.
So would you say
put it on its own back. Yeah, put it on its own layer, and then you'll be able to control it independently. Give that a go. Yeah, what's up?
I can't get my background.
You can't get your background. Yeah, okay, so the background of your stage is actually a non-renderable object. You can't control the background color of your stage.
Okay.
So here's what I would do. Make a square.
Square.
Yeah, make it the color that you want, or any color for that matter. Make it something other than white.
Okay.
And then draw a big, if you want the entire background to be red, just draw a big red square in the background.
Oh, I did do it right.
Yeah. There it is. Now this button right there will clip.
But didn't you want us to do that? Do it like that?
I have two squares. I have a blue square and a green square.
You wanted us to do that?
Or whatever your background is.
Oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay.
It's up to you. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how to take out the, because I think it separated.
Yeah, the strokes in there. Now you can select them and delete them. Yeah, the black arrow. Yeah, you gotta figure out which frame they're on. But you can select them and delete them. In the future, what I would recommend that you do when you draw the shapes, just make sure that the stroke is off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for starting it out, should I start out with it like squashed here and then?
Yeah, you could start it squashed. You know what I did is I had it start at its resting pose, and then squash, and then I was going to have it jump up. So lots of choices. Yes, sir. Okay, so we need to use the sub-selection tool, the white arrow. And then just click on the boundary. Yeah, there you go. Good job.
save again, will it resave?
It will. Yep. Yep.
Because I did not want to lose all this work.
No, I don't want you to lose all that work either. Now, one thing to keep in mind as you go through the conclusion of both your homework and your lab, and as I mentioned this before, look at your animation, okay? Make a couple of frames, and then play it back and make sure it's going down the right path, okay? Be methodical in this, and take it slow. Don't try to rush through this, okay? It's going to take you an hour or so. That's just welcome to the world of animation. This is a very slow art form. The faster you try to work through this, the more often you're going to make mistakes. Keep in mind, there's two things that we're striving to complete for this week. The single bounce. You guys look like you're about halfway, maybe 3/4 of the way through that. Awesome, okay? And then when you're finished, remember to go back and do the bouncing ball, okay? That one's 3 bounces inside the frame, okay? Same principles and ideas that we talked about when it came to the single bounce, but now we're just doing 3 of them. Yes, sir? Okay, I'll catch you here in a minute. Nick, you got a question? No? Okay, cool. If I don't see you between now and next week, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you guys next week, okay?